Hello, this is the Truth Speaks Network. I'm your host, Dylan, and I'm joined an activist Bill Murray from the Free Thought Project. You with us?
Hello, I'm right here.
All right. So you thought we were live before. Can you recap what you were saying?
Yes, yes. I was just giving kind of a brief overview of myself and how I got involved into the Free Thought Project. Um, I woke up to some of this government overreach and the acceleration of the police state a couple years ago, and decided to start telling others about it. I got involved with online and local activism. I created a Facebook page called Awaken Your Beast. You can go find that on Facebook. It's not as active as it used to be because I've kind of moved on to bigger and wouldn't say better, but bigger things, reaching more people. I do. I'm a content creator for Police the Police, Cop Logic, and I do some work with Cop Block's Facebook page as well, reaching millions of people a week via Facebook, and we also use that platform to get out our stories on the freethoughtproject.com, and which is a website that focuses on government overreach, corporate overreach, mostly focuses on the police state that we're talking about today, and interactions with cops, knowing your rights, encouraging people to film police, and police accountability. That's kind of what I'm doing right now, and our website has been around since September, October of last year, and we're hovering right around the top 1,000 trafficked websites in America right now, according to Alexa.com. So we've kind of springboarded from just a few months to here we are now, where we're really reaching a lot of people. And I think it's information that people are really grabbing a hold of and starting to use the information that we have to put social pressure on these, not just the individual police, but the police department, sheriff's department, judges, and local governments that are involved in these abuses and that we were seeing on a daily basis. I mean, you can go on YouTube and find these videos of police misconduct and other things that are going on. I don't know if it's accelerating at the rate of more police brutality, or if it's just more people are starting to film the interactions. It's kind of hard to tell.
Well,
But
it could also be the fact that now we have the internet. Now we have ways to communicate these things.
sure, sure. It's like Cop Block's Facebook page. If you go to the Facebook page Cop Block, you see they have over 700,000 fans. Well, just a few months ago, they only had 40,000. And at the turn of the year, in January 2014, from what I've been told, it's really just caught on, and people are tired of it, and they're ready to spread the information, inform themselves of their rights, and put a stop to this.
Um,
So it's pretty interesting how fast everything's kind of just happened, as far as from people not really knowing what was going on, thinking that these were just isolated incidents, to now people are saying, oh, this happened to me, this happened to my brother or a family member or a friend. What can I do to put an end to it?
so
So
can we take a short break? It'll be like a minute.
that's fine.
I just need to get a few things set.
Sure. Go right ahead.
We're back. Sorry for the delay. I had to do some things.
No, you're fine.
So, uh, where where were we? We were talking about the internet and how it might be helping to get the message across.
Oh, without a doubt, it is. You know, like I was saying, people are really starting to want to inform themselves of their rights. I think it has a lot to do with this growing libertarian movement that we're seeing. People are tired of being in the left-right, red-blue paradigm that we've been in, and they're wanting to change things. And in order to change things, you have to inform yourself. And the internet is definitely helping people inform themselves, to say the least. So knowing your rights, knowing certain things like just you can go on YouTube or go on the freethoughtproject.com and look at some of our articles, and you can see interactions with police where people know their rights and where people don't know their rights. And you can kind of see that it is definitely helpful to know your rights when you're interacting with police. It's really quite, it's not that hard to do. I mean, you do a little bit of research, say, finding out if your state is a stop and ID state. Where I live in Oklahoma, it's not a stop and ID state. And we just had a recent encounter, or I guess incident, at the Moore Theater in Moore, Oklahoma, where a father named Luis Rodriguez was harassed by police who thought that he was involved in a crime when they had no articulable facts to think that he was involved in any criminal activity. And they wanted him to provide ID. He refused to provide ID, and the police ended up taking him down and ended up killing him because he refused to provide ID. And of course, I'm sure Mr. Rodriguez, if he had been following some of this information on the internet, he would have known a better way to flex his rights. But still, he refused to lick their boots and died because of it. And he had done nothing wrong, and if he would have known his rights, perhaps he could have flexed them in a different way. So it's very important for people to know this, because these things, these incidents, aren't an isolated incidents. They're happening all the time. From what I've researched and seen, it's a phenomenon called the rise of the warrior cop. I think there's a book written about it, and it talks about how just the mentality of police has changed since right around the time of 9/11. You can go and look and see there was a Supreme Court ruling that allows police departments to bar police officers or recruits. They don't have to hire them if their IQs are too high. So if you have a high IQ, chances are in a lot of these departments you can't be a cop. And we have to ask, why is this? They want people, I think it's because they want people in police departments to not question authority, not question orders, and just obey, just like they want us to obey. And we're seeing not only the change in the mentality of the cops because of that, they're targeting recruits that have things in their background that are quite controversial. I've talked to even people on the local levels here in Oklahoma that that say during the recruiting process, the actual recruiters or the police departments like to see some kind of trauma in an individual's background, because that would actually make the person less likely to, I guess, react. They would react to a situation, say, where they needed to pull the trigger. They would pull the trigger first and ask questions later. Then they wouldn't hesitate, I guess, because of this background that they have, whether it be an abusive family environment or anything like that. It gives them an edge on the job, and that's what they look for now. in police departments. Not all police departments. I'm saying a lot of police departments now are looking for these type of people to fill their staff.
The
So
last thing, the last thing you need is a cop with a vengeance.
yeah, it's kind of a scary path that we're taking here, allowing this to happen. And also, one thing that I've been seeing is something called a gypsy cop phenomena. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, and I wasn't aware of it just not until not too long ago, where cops, they get fired for misconduct on the job, and they end up going to another department, whether it be in another county or another state. They end up getting hired on again. Now, this is something that has been addressed in the past, and even most law enforcement officers now, I was talking to one just yesterday, thought that it was a thing of the past. And in fact, no, it's not. There are administrative loopholes that departments, when they're separating an officer from a department, they fill out the paperwork in a certain way where when the officer leaves that department because he got fired, he goes on to another one, they can't find it on his background that he has these, certain controversial remarks in his background, or misconduct in his background. They can't see it, so they hire him on. There was an award-winning piece by the I think it was the LA Times that they did on their department, where most of their staff in 2013 that the department hired on, most of them had been rejected from other departments or had some kind of misconduct in their background. And that's not something that's just the LAPD. It's something that's happening all over the United States, I've found out by researching myself. So there's just a lot of things going on. And then you're given these people that have these controversial backgrounds and have these, tendencies. You're giving them weapons of war left over from, the war in Iraq or Afghanistan. They're bringing these MRAP vehicles. The MRAP stands for, let's see if I can remember, mine resistant, ambush protected vehicles.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And so you're seeing those being converted from the wars overseas, and they're coming home to our departments here. Not just the big cities, the small towns with hardly any crime are getting these. And, that necessarily wouldn't be a bad thing in my mind if the police are actually protecting and serving us. But it seems to be that they're protecting and serving someone else, and they're getting geared up for something other than protecting us. It seems like they're getting geared up for war against us.
Oh.
And then that just leads you down the rabbit hole to other things.
I thought that was Homeland Security's job.
Yeah. But anyway, is there anything else in particular you want to touch on?
There's a lot of things, actually. I want to get into the FEMA camp conspiracies. And has your research led you to anything about those?
Well, when I first woke up, that was something that I really dove into, was the FEMA camp stuff. There's been leaked articles. I know that, or leaked documents that they don't call them FEMA camps. The government doesn't. They don't like to call them that. They call them. They have a big long name for them, and I paraphrase. I call it a re-education camp. I know Storm Clouds Gathering did a video on the leaked documents about that, and it goes back further than just recently with these quote FEMA camps unquote. Rex 84 from I believe the early 80s is when this all started. I could be wrong. It could have started before then.
They used them in during World War II after we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All the Japanese Americans were put into them.
Well, sure,
that's documented.
Sure. Yes, there were those select camps, but yeah, they really geared it up in other places around the United States, from what I know, with the Rex 84. If you Google Rex 84, you'll probably stumble onto a lot of stuff about that conspiracy. I am a believer that there are these FEMA camps out there, I know that a lot of places they're going to use when the stuff hits the fan. They're going to use certain bases and certain other places as these FEMA camps, as designated re-education camps.
Hmm.
So not all of them are just these vacant bases with barbed wire around them, like that you'll see when you look up FEMA camps, say on Google Images or something. Uh, they're designated different bases and things
They
as
do
these
have the
places.
barbed wire ones. I
Oh,
mean,
sure, definitely do.
you
They definitely do. Uh,
to
and, and
see
it and another thing is it's a moneymaker. They give these big government contracts to people like
Halliburton.
or companies like Halliburton. Uh, they give all this money of our taxpayer money to these fascist entities to make these camps, and it's scary is a euphemism, because what exactly are they planning on happening? We see here lately in the news, Dick Cheney and Dianne Feinstein are all
John
saying that
McCain.
there's going to be some kind of new 9/11, bigger and badder and more deadly.
Yeah, we can
Than,
quote Dick Cheney on that.
yeah, yeah, he's definitely been talking about it, and it makes you wonder.
I
Because,
think
I
it'll.
mean, before 9/11, they talked about this new terror threat that was going to happen. I mean,
Oh,
9 months before. So,
I think this is a theory of mine that it'll be chemical. It'll be chemical or biological.
chemical or biological, definitely.
Because then,
Definitely.
didn't the Syrians just hand over their chemical weapons to the United States? Not even last week. They handed them over.
Who did?
The Syrians.
The Syrians. Yeah. Well, it's and that whole thing over in Syria is just a big debacle as well. But I don't doubt that these, I don't even know what you call them. I guess Alex Jones calls them what, globalists? What
Uh,
these globalists have planned, these
yeah.
government and corporate fascists have planned for whatever this new 9/11 is.
Well, do you think that they're planning it for what Alex Jones says they're planning it for?
Oh, well, I don't know what he says they're necessarily planning it for. He says a lot of things, but who knows? I mean, who really knows? And I mean, it could be a legitimate terror attack that happens, but I think that
Nah, it seems too coincidental at this point.
well, I mean, legitimate as, it could be some people that are like this ISIS thing, who are Al Qaeda. They're just giving them a new big bad guy name, big boogeyman name, ISIS. I mean, they're probably coming across the border right now.
Oh,
So our government allows that to happen.
interesting
They have
facts.
direct involvement in it. Who knows? I think probably more than likely so. But you allow that to happen. You allow these terrorist groups to infiltrate our borders, while at the same time, if we want to fly anywhere or go anywhere within our borders, the TSA has to, basically molest us before we can get on a plane. But our borders are just wide open for these terrorist groups to come right in. So,
And that's another thing I wanted to discuss with you because you obviously research the police state a lot, and they're a big contributor to it. TSA, DHS, NSA,
sure.
they're all big
Sure, to
contributors.
the whole big spectrum of it, for sure. Department of Homeland Security and TSA, that was all implemented after 9/11. It's I mean, they hired on, Department of Homeland Security hired on the head of the Stasi. I mean, people, if they just looked at this, I mean, it's all out there in the open. It's crazy. And now we know that the police have been listening to our phone calls with just this little piece of technology called a stingray. I don't know if you've heard about that, but that's been in the news recently. It doesn't take the NSA to tap our phones. The local police departments can do it using this piece of technology that looks like a little box, a little electrical box from the 70s. It's pretty crazy. If you search that stingray, you'll see what I'm talking about. yeah, there's overreach from the lower levels all the way to the highest level. There really isn't any rule of law on these people, and the only people subjected to the rule of law are the poor and the middle class. It's quite out of hand.
Yeah, there was a story. It kind of relates to the police state of a kid in Philly who he's autistic, who recorded these bullies abusing him. He took it to the principal and he got charged with wiretapping.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They're allowed to tap our phones and
But if we
allowed to do all this stuff without warrants. Yet when we try to defend ourselves or we try to use it for good, it's looked down upon by our governments.
Yeah.
They say, hey, we can do that, but you can't.
And it would be bad enough if he was just charged, but he was convicted of it.
Was he convicted of it? Because I thought that they threw it out after it got national headlines. I could be wrong.
Before it got headlines, I know they had convicted him of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on right now. That we should touch on a couple of positive things. I wouldn't say one of them is necessarily positive, but the Supreme Court ruling that says the police need a search warrant to look into your phone. It was a unanimous decision just this week by the Supreme Court. It was a big shocker to me.
Yeah, they did a good thing for once.
Yeah, exactly. When they recently ruled that, they kind of bend the rules on the Fourth Amendment with every ruling that comes out, and then they do this. So I can't believe it was unanimous, but evidently they...
Can we touch on why that's a good thing? Because I had somebody arguing with me that it was a bad thing.
What, that police can't go into your phone without a search warrant?
Yeah, I had somebody arguing to me that that was a bad thing.
Did they say why they thought it was a bad thing?
Because they believe if they believe it's a criminal, they should be able to search without a warrant because a warrant would take too long to get. That's their argument.
Well, if you are a criminal, then I don't think that it's like if you are suspected of criminal activity and they catch you doing something criminal, they don't need a warrant to come and get you.
No, but
if they're in pursuit of you and say you run into your house after you just killed somebody or something, they don't need a warrant to get in your house. They witnessed it happen. They can come and get you.
No, that's agreed. But
so yeah, if you're involved in criminal activity, you've done something really bad, and you get caught red-handed. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't need a warrant to go through your phone then. But if it's somebody like
no, the argument they were making was if the police believed it, and they could search without a warrant.
Well,
they believe a lot of things, or they claim to.
I mean, that sounds like it's somebody that's probably not too informed on the atrocities that are going on and the erosion of our rights right now. So people can say that all the time. I run into people that think all of this police state stuff isn't actually police state stuff. It's actually good stuff for our security. And I believe that freedom, in fact, is dangerous. I think some of our founders, or one of our founders, said that I'll take, what is it that he said? I'll take dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery any day. So freedom is something that isn't necessarily safe.
No,
but it's a lot safer to me than the alternative, the security state, the fascist, communist kind of dictatorship, which we seem to be rolling into right now.
Yeah,
is very dangerous.
We've lived in a dictatorship for a long time. We've lived in a fascist state for a long time.
Sure. And we're reaching a flashpoint right now to where people are starting to see it. And these small things that seemed small before are all coming to a head, and people are saying, whoa, wait, you can't do that. The NDAA, you can indefinitely detain anyone you want to under the guise of national security without due process of law. Isn't that against the Constitution? Well, we've seen that our government no longer represents us. We're seeing these rights that
Slip
our founders enacted the federal government to protect.
that they died for.
Yeah.
They risked their lives for it, and now we're just gonna give it up.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like the person you were talking about, doesn't understand how important the ideas of liberty are. They don't understand how protecting the rights of the individual is what freedom is essentially protecting the rights of the individual, not to protect the rights of the greater whole over the individual, which is what we call collectivism. And that's what we really are deep into right now. Collectivism, democracy. Democracy is the power of the whole over the individual, when our founders wanted a republic, which was to have a government to protect those rights, not to protect themselves from the people who are trying to protect their rights. It's pretty crazy how we've swung in this direction. So
I agree. It's really upsetting that people keep using this argument of it's a new world. It's okay, let's apply that argument to all of the amendments. Is it a new world so we can't say what we want?
yes, it's a pretty a lot of fallacies with that argument there. Well, it was good for our founders, but that was
200 years ago.
200 something years ago. It's different now. How does that make it different? Just because we're later in time. It really isn't much of an argument at all. But
honestly, it's incredible that they could predict what would happen 200 years later and put measures in to stop it.
Well, that's the thing. Tyranny is a very old thing. The founders actually got a lot of the information that they needed from hundreds of years before 1776. There was the Grand Remonstrance, I can't remember of what year, but it named 4 traits of tyranny. And I can probably actually look that up right now, because I don't want to try and quote it and be inaccurate. But the Grand Remonstrance, I want to say, let me see here.
When people say the Constitution's outdated, it should be rewritten. You know what? Maybe you're right. It should be more strict. It should close these loopholes that they keep using. It should be modernized so that the Supreme Court can't rule that capturing metadata isn't searching or recording.
Yeah, that's the thing. This whole tyranny that we're living under, this is old. The Constitution is very new. There are the traits of tyranny that our founders were trying to protect us from. Okay, and there are actually 5 of them. I think I may have said 4. The idiosyncrasies, if you will, of tyranny, as per the Grand Remonstrance of 1641. Granted, this is in 1641, almost 400 years ago, and this was one of the documents that our founders had in mind when they framed the Constitution. And these 5 traits of tyranny are: 1, the corruption of courts, which I think that's pretty obvious that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
When we see these rich people that I don't know if you recall the DuPont heir that
raped his own children and got off free because he wouldn't fare well.
Yes, he wouldn't fare well in prison. Or the kid in Texas who killed multiple people while he was drunk behind the wheel and
got off on affluenza.
Affluenza,
which I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, exactly. They're making this up. That's the corruption of the courts right there. And that's number one. Number two is controlling the church, which we've known from whistleblowers in the past that these churches, especially a lot of the big evangelical churches, these mega churches, are actually in bed with the government. They take orders from the government to sway the populations to do as the government says. I remember being in church as a little kid is saying that they would tell us that the president is the president because God made him the president.
Do you remember? I don't remember when the. Sorry to cut you off, by the way. I don't remember when the documents were released, but I saw this document about a year ago, and it outlined a memo to church officials asking them to keep the people in their churches docile under martial law.
Yeah, I'm not sure when those documents. I think there's been multiple documents that have been leaked by whistleblowers. But yeah, it's all out there in the open. People can go look at controlling the church. The government is doing that too, and that's number two on these lists of tyrannical traits. And number three is fiat money. This is 1641. Okay.
Let's have fun with that.
These people knew that fiat money was a control measure used by a tyrannical regime or monarchy or government.
Let's have fun with fiat money for a second. We could have a lot of fun with just that.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're printing money just out of nothing. I think a lot of people. I think that's one thing that Ron Paul really woke people up with his, in the Fed stance. All of these politicians that say that they're going to fix the economy.
And as much as I think Rand isn't his dad, got to give Rand credit. He's campaigning on end of the Fed as well.
He wants to audit them, and yes, he is going that way too.
Him and Ted Cruz, who I entirely disagree with on a lot of things, are trying.
Yes, all politicians you got to keep a close eye on. Sometimes they'll say a lot of good things, but that doesn't mean that they're going to not change that.
No, I believe
moment. But,
I believe Rand and Ted are both controlled opposition.
It's possible, Ted Cruz and his wife's connections to to Goldman Sachs and the Council on Foreign Relations. It's possible that they may be in bed with these big corporations, but also you have to look at, the Council on Foreign Relations, yes, they're a big, bad, one of these worst type of...
they're up there with Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg.
But they're also looking for the best and the brightest as well. So I'm not saying that everybody in the Council on Foreign Relations is privy to all of this knowledge that they're trying to wreck the system.
That they're trying to... The Council on Foreign Relations is really just trying to... I'm going to go Alex Jones here. Globalize the world.
I agree.
They're trying to control it.
They are the Federal Reserve. They're the same entities that run the Federal Reserve.
And the military-industrial complex.
Sure. And, the connections to the IMF and World Bank and so on and so forth. And then we're already into this, like I said before, flashpoint to where we're approaching this world government status. I don't know if you've listened to whistleblower Karen Hudez.
I've heard of her. I've never given her... I've passed through and seen it, but I've never watched it.
Okay, well, I will say that listen to what she has to say about the World Bank. She is interested in other conspiracies and thinks she knows quite a bit, and she might know quite a bit about other conspiracies and things. But what you need to listen, if you listen to her, is what she found out while working at the World Bank. It's very telling, especially when you're talking about going into this global governance and this world government that people think is a conspiracy theory. It's already happening
We're
behind
there.
closed doors.
And we can just, on the socioeconomic standpoint of it, TPP, that's a big step in that direction.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Partnership, yeah, those are going. I mean, we saw that with NAFTA.
SOPA.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the internet censorship. Sure, yeah, that's in there too. They're definitely trying to shut down our communications because they realize, I think it's a big new, Brzezinski said, it's much easier to kill 100 million people these days, more so than it is to control 100 million people. So they were wanting to shut down the internet, and like anything else, it's not something that they just flip a switch and happens. They do it by fiat, which takes time, and they call it what some people call the totalitarian tiptoe. It's something that takes time, and we're definitely seeing that, and we're definitely moving towards that, to where we were, the people on the internet, the activists that I'm involved with, it was just, one thing. It was SOPA or CISPA, just one thing here or there, and we would knock it down through activism and reaching people and getting people informed about what this was. Now it's all angles. They're hitting us with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They're hitting us with all kinds of other backroom deals that we can't see and we can't inform others on. It just seems to be their end goal is going to happen whether we like it or not.
Well, there's a movement currently going on to expose the chemtrails, and it's actually gained a lot of steam. I think that the bigger issue to fight against right now is the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Partnership more than anything, because those are going to be the downfall of really all sovereignty in the world.
Sure, it's hard to pick one thing to go after. There's so many things going on right now. I realize that as well, and man, to tell you, I don't know what we go after first. My big deal is just informing people to the whole fraud that we're under right now. The Federal Reserve, money in politics. It's just, there's just so much, and that's one thing why I chose this police state thing. Well, it actually kind of chose me with the freethoughtproject.com. is that it exposes the war on drugs. It exposes the police state. Which are all just symptoms of this overall problem that we're having.
Agreed. Can we discuss the war on drugs and the prison industrial complex, because those go hand in hand with the police state?
That is very true. The war on drugs. Well, we've seen an increase in prisoners since the application of the war on drugs. We currently have the largest prison population in history due to the war on drugs.
One state, I'm sorry, Louisiana surpasses all of them. Louisiana has more prison population than Iran, and more than China.
Yes, and where I live at in Oklahoma, we currently have 49 people serving life sentences for our strict marijuana laws. We have the largest female prison population, and females are mostly nonviolent offenders. We have the largest female prison population in America. And I think we're in the top 5, kind of up there with Louisiana on overall numbers, and we're not that big of a state. And you have to ask yourself, I ask people all the time in Oklahoma, okay, you throw these facts at them that we have so many prisoners, and then you say, are you as free as you think you are? And what is tyranny? What would tyranny look like if this is not tyranny?
You know what we forgot to do?
What's that?
We forgot to finish the other 2 points from the 5 parts of tyranny.
The 5 traits of tyranny. I was going to stop you and go into that real quick. Okay, so we covered, and we'll move on into the drug war and the prison industrial complex after that.
Yeah, I just realized how quickly we moved.
That's okay, I got it right in front of me here. The corruption of courts, controlling the church, fiat money, introduction, if I can speak, introduction of foreign law, which we're seeing with UN Agenda 21.
Mm-hmm. I really got to break that down on one of these shows. It's the one It's one of the few topics I forgot to cover.
Yeah, and the naysayers out there will say, well, here's the UN document. They'll send you a link. Here's the UN Agenda 21. Point out where it says it's a global takeover plan. Where does it say that? Well, these people are naive enough to think that this UN plan is just going to go out and say it right in the text. Well,
you just have to read it.
Yeah, you have to read it and realize what these plans actually mean. And you can see, I don't know if you've ever seen the commercials for UN Agenda 21, the one with the elderly people and the one with the children. I think Glenn Beck covered those, but it's not just that. It's not just about the death panels in Obamacare. It has a lot to do with private property and the
Ted Cruz
abolishing private property.
Ted Cruz spoke out on it,
mm-hmm.
And there's actually a law trying to be passed now by the Obama administration that would abolish private property.
Oh yeah, I think there's some stuff in the Obamacare Affordable Care Act that has to do with private property. It's pretty crazy how they just sneak these things in wherever they can.
Well, they have a lot of reason to. Congress doesn't read the bills. The Senate doesn't read the bills. They just talk to their donors.
Yeah, exactly. Here in Oklahoma, we've actually passed a bill to block UN Agenda 21 legislation. So that's kind of cool.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, even though we're a little behind the curve, say on marijuana laws, we are more of a uber conservative state. So a lot of people say it's a conspiracy theory. Well, tell that to our House and Senate in Oklahoma, because they don't think it's a conspiracy theory. They've read it and they've passed bills to block it.
Yeah, they're one of the few. I believe they're the only.
We might be the only. I don't know. I know other states have things that have been shot down, and they may have some stuff in progress right now, kind of like stopping Obamacare. I know that there's going to be more attempts to do that. It's all about the 10th Amendment, the state's powers to block federal overreach. And that is something that a lot of our candidates this year and here recently in Oklahoma are running on the 10th Amendment.
Why are none of them running on the 4th Amendment or the 5th Amendment?
Well, it has to do with they are doing that as well, but it's all about standing up to the 10th Amendment is about standing up to the federal government and states' rights or states' powers, superseding that of the federal government. So if you do that, if you invoke your 10th Amendment right as an entire state, then you can block all these this government overreach of the 4th Amendment, of the 1st Amendment, of the 2nd Amendment, 5th Amendment.
Utah has many problems, but Utah was the first state to invoke their 10th Amendment right in response to the NSA. They have, I believe now it's official, shut down all water and electricity going to the NSA facility.
I didn't know if they actually went through with that or not. I
I've
was following that for a while, but now it's kind of under the radar. I didn't hear what the
uh,
end result of that was.
I read an article. I'm sorry to cut you off again,
No, you're fine.
but I read an article today that said they passed it.
Wow, wow, yeah. You need to send me that link, and I'll check it out. I'll definitely check it out.
So it's good that somebody's finally fighting back.
Yeah,
And
and it doesn't surprise me in Utah because from these new directives from the White House and these leaked documents that show that 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 the government's preparing for war against the American people, they list preppers and conservatives.
conspiracy theorists.
Well, yeah, but you look at Utah and their conservative ideals and with their Mormon religion. I mean, they all prep. A lot of them prep. They make their own food and they store it and all of that. And yeah, they're going to be pretty pissed off when they hear that their government is considering them terrorists now. So same with Oklahoma. So there's definitely being some push. There is some pushback going on from the states through the 10th Amendment with this libertarian Tea Party type resistance that we're seeing. So that's good. So we touched on the introduction of foreign law, and we actually touched on how to push back against it, which is the 10th Amendment. And then the fifth trait of tyranny, and we went through, I'll list them one more time: corruption of courts, controlling the church, fiat money, introduction of foreign law, and finally, disarming the people. And again, this is from 1641, one of the documents that our founders had in mind when they framed the Constitution.
Did Hitler get his playbook from this?
Well, it's a playbook that is just, I mean,
It's like 1984.
It's historical. It's historical. It's what they don't teach us in schools, is the history of all this tyranny, and it's all the same.
It's like 1984.
Yeah, exactly. And this is from almost 400 years ago. So
it's incredible.
This is a very old system. The Constitution is very new compared to what we're seeing with our government right now.
But the Constitution, I think, after hearing about all this, was founded to fight against it.
For sure. For sure it was.
They hit each point. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. They hit all of them.
Yes, and they outline why they hit all of them in their what's it called? The
Bill of Rights.
Well, no, there was
Declaration of Independence.
Well, yeah, but they actually, people say, it doesn't. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and Bill of Rights, they don't explain their intent on why they made certain things. Like people will say the Second Amendment was for hunting, not to against government tyranny. When in fact, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now.
The amendment itself states that it's for oppressive government.
The Federalist Papers, that's what I was trying to think of. The Federalist Papers are where the founders go into grave detail about each amendment and about why they describe their intent. And people say, well, you don't know the intent of the framers of the Constitution. That's not why they made the Second Amendment. That's not why they made the First Amendment. Well, you can go into the Federalist Papers and find out why. And in fact, the Second Amendment was for, in case of a tyrannical government, the people would have arms to take up. And people say, well, they don't know. You don't know what the intent was by a well-regulated militia. Well, it states in the Federalist Papers why and who that militia is. And that militia are the people, not a group of veterans down the block that got a little gang together to go shooting on the weekends with. No, it's everybody. And well regulated doesn't mean that they only have 10 rounds of this or 20 rounds of that, and their magazines only shoot this many rounds. It doesn't mean government regulation.
No,
It
it
means
means
regulated as far as from generation to continually happening, a regular type thing, not regulated by the federal government. So pretty interesting. But it's also important to note that the People's Republic of China, the USSR, North Korea, they all had a constitution with a Bill of Rights. So this can be stripped of us at any time. You know, so that's definitely important.
I don't think that in the USSR though. They had people warning everyone that this would happen. I don't know. I wasn't there, but
Well, there's dissidents and activists that sure tried to warn people, but we all know what happened to those people in the past. They just off with their heads.
luckily, if we were all killed here, it would be difficult for them to hide it.
Yeah, but I mean, these people that in America that are asleep, these government sympathizers or people that think that the government is so good, it's kind of like the Bundy Ranch scenario. You had people on the left calling for a drone strike against Clive and Bundy and the militia that was out there. So they want it to happen. They call for it to happen. It's crazy. It's the doublethink from 1984. 2 + 2 = 5. It's just people are so accepting of these extreme measures that the government will take to keep them safe. Conspiracy theorists are bad. The Tea Party's bad. Ron Paul's bad. We need to re-educate them or kill them. Send them in camps. Sure. I can see people openly calling for it. So
Yeah,
maybe not tomorrow, but I don't think we're far from it.
I think I'll end up seeing it in my lifetime.
I think that you may be right. I really do. I think that it may happen sooner than a lot of us think. So we touched on the 5 traits of tyranny as per the Grand Remonstrance of 1641, one of the documents by our founding father that our founding fathers had in mind when they framed the Constitution. There were some other documents as well, but anyway, did you want to touch on the drug war at all?
I do.
Okay. Well, I'll just go into, again, my state here in Oklahoma. The private prison industry is one of the biggest contributors to our current sitting governor, Mary Fallin. And Mary Fallin has came out and said that she will never, not in her time as governor, will pass any pro-marijuana legislation.
And that's what our
it's not
governor.
Surprising, right?
No, but that's what our governor Christie says.
Yeah, exactly. You got to look and see who's in his pocket. But
he could certainly hide them well.
Yeah, right. Our private prison system here has a deal with the government to keep their prisons at 98% occupancy. That means if they legalize or decriminalize marijuana and all of these people come out of these prisons and their occupancy goes down, they still have to pay this private prison industry like these prisons were at 98% occupancy.
So it's more beneficial for them to keep it at 98% occupancy, no matter what. And the private prisons make a lot of money off of their prisoners because they can get them to do cheap labor. It's almost slavery. It's slavery in a lot of ways.
There is the cheap labor angle there. Yes, that is something that is happening. It isn't happening as much as a lot of people think, but yes, that is happening as well for the cheap labor. You have people like Nintendo and and some other companies. I actually made a graphic about that a while back about uh, the cheap slavery that they get out of these private prisons.
Oh
But
yeah.
but yeah, that's something else as well. Can you imagine if, say, the Marriott had a deal with the government to keep their hotels at 98% occupancy? I mean, it's just crazy.
I
And
mean, the federal government has no business being involved in any industry really, other than at the bare minimum, especially the prison industry, because the moment you privatize prison, they become for profit.
yeah, that's true, but again, it isn't saying it's privatized is not saying it's a part of the free market either, because you have this fascist kind of cooperation subsidized through the government as well. So I'm somewhat of an anarcho-capitalist. So that's a lot of what a lot of people say is, oh, you can't privatize it and this and that. Well, it's not really privatized when it's subsidized by the government. So we're actually paying for it. It's kind of weird how they work that. But anyway, so you have the marijuana laws and the war on drugs. You have the private prison, the prison industrial complex that is fighting all of these, all of this new legislation all over the United States, trying to get medical marijuana or the decriminalization of marijuana or recreational marijuana use on the ballot and voted for by the people, because the times of reefer madness are pretty much over. People realize that marijuana is not as dangerous as, say, alcohol is. So the prison industrial complex is one of the big fascist entities fighting against that. And you have why it was made illegal in the first place was because you have the lumber industry and other industries that realized that they'd be out of business if there was hemp brought into the market and if it was legalized. Instead of wiping out rainforests and all the trees on the planet, we could, use hemp, which is stronger. And a lot of our documents that our founding fathers, wrote on, they were made of hemp, hemp paper and all of that. Our founders actually partook in smoking cannabis at the end of the day. So there are a lot of reasons why it's made illegal, not just because people are afraid that hippies are going to be smoking it and having too much fun and driving around all crazy or whatever it may be they think that these people do that smoke it. Also, the government is well aware that of the medicinal purposes of marijuana, not just smoking it. I don't know if you're aware of cannabis oil and its healing properties. Very interesting.
Once they talked about how cannabis oil could actually heal what I have.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any fact behind it, but
Well, if you don't mind saying, what is it? What is it that you have?
they don't exactly know, but I'm in a wheelchair. I can't move my arms or legs.
I see. Well, yeah, don't you think that if there's no other alternatives out there for you, that you would like to try that, especially when it doesn't have any of the harmful side effects? I mean, it just makes sense. But the thing is, you have this drug, marijuana, THC, that people are saying it has all these medicinal benefits, but they can't research it because it's a Schedule I narcotic. I mean, you can't get the funding to do research on a drug that has been deemed to not have any medicinal purposes as a Schedule I narcotic. So you can't get the proper research done on it to prove it. So you have all these anecdotal stories of like the children with Dravet syndrome that have grand mal seizures up to 100, 200 seizures a day that can't get access to any type of medication that works except for cannabis oil, and it works like a miracle, almost instantaneously, getting rid of nearly all of the seizures. You know,
Yeah.
so it's crazy that, and the thing is with marijuana and with hemp or cannabis, whatever you want to call it, there are potentially hundreds of cannabinoids in these in the cannabis plant. We only are researching and have discovered about 5 of them. 5 of them: CBD, THC, and a few others. Now, if we can extract and research other ones of this plant, that it is the most antibiotic plant on the planet, or flower on the planet, it's unbelievable what the possibilities might actually be, and what we might actually be able to cure if we had the means to actually research it and find out about these other cannabinoids.
It's actually now been, I'm sorry again, it's now been proven that it can shrink tumors.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
It's a lot of things have been proven, but you have the masses out there that just see it as a gateway drug, and that people only want it legal because they want to get high, and all of that.
it doesn't kill people. I've never heard of a single marijuana death.
Yep, exactly. And if there were a marijuana death out there, which
they would have paraded
it, they would have paraded it, yes. But even then, I mean, look at what is out there for people to use now. All the pharmaceutical stuff. It's unbelievable. It's funny how they say marijuana has no medicinal value, and they label it as a Schedule I narcotic. But the pharmaceutical industry can make Marinol, which is a chemical compound that mirrors THC for, to give people for medicine. So it's just hypocritical. And then all the other pharmaceutical drugs out there have so many different side effects and harmful side effects that people are almost worse for taking them.
I mean, it's not the only. There are multiple reasons that they won't legalize it. The main one, probably the prison industrial complex. The secondary one, probably big pharma. The cure for cancer is not as profitable as the search for it.
You're completely right there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one other thing I want to touch on is this new. Did you hear the new or read the new ACLU study on the SWAT raids?
I did not.
Okay, we're talking about the war on drugs and SWAT raids. Most of these SWAT raids are to combat drug use or the selling of drugs. And there are some really head-spinning facts that in this new ACLU study that they've came up with. There is a here, and I'll go ahead and send you the link from the Free Thought Project. We aggregated it from the article from another source, but just so you can take a look at it with me, I went ahead and sent it to you.
Thanks.
But the 10 facts. This one is from Michael Snyder of American Dream. 10 facts about the SWATification of America that everyone should know. Number 1, in 1980 there were approximately 3,000 SWAT raids in the United States per year. Now there are more than 80,000. 80,000 SWAT raids a year.
And when was this study conducted, and how many years did they cover?
Let's see if it shows it here.
I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here.
No, you're fine. I actually wanted to touch on that. let me backtrack here. I know where it's at, where it says. Of course, they didn't study all 80,000 per year.
No, but I mean, how many years?
They did a big chunk of them over a 4-year span, I think. Let me double check that. Let me get to my next page here.
4 years would make sense. If that's when the spike began to occur, that would make a little bit of sense.
Law enforcement. I'm still looking here, trying to find the article. Going back in our archives here on the Free Thought Project, we come out with about 5 or 6 articles a day. So I'm just going through the week here. I think it was at the beginning of the week when this study came out.
Does the Free Thought Project only focus on police brutality and the police state?
No. That is definitely our main targeted subject. But we do, if you go onto our tabs at the top of our home screen, you see good news, the amazing health news, environmental news, things like that. We do cover other things, but the bulk of what we do, I would say about 90% of it is, in fact, the police state. Let's see. All right. This one here is from RT. Let's see.
RT is one of the better websites out there for U.S. news. They don't have any bias towards the U.S.
Okay. The report examines 818 SWAT operations from July of 2010 to last October. Let's see. This is over the span of 20 law enforcement agencies in 11 states.
Oh, so they're not even covering the great majority of the country.
No, which would be very difficult to do.
Agreed, but I mean, 80,000 a year in just 11 states.
No, that calculation was from all of them in the United States, but the actual percentages and stuff that they come up with through their studies is from those 818 that they researched.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
So,
I was confused.
Yeah. So there's 80,000 SWAT raids per year estimated, but they researched just a fraction of those, and they found out that 79% of the time SWAT teams are deployed to private homes. 50% of the victims of SWAT raids per year are black or Latino, and that, the prison industrial complex and the laws target these minority groups. Let's see, and those are the 1, 2, and 3 on the list. Number 4, in 65% of SWAT deployments, a battering ram, boot, or some sort of explosive device is used to gain force entry to the home. 62% of all SWAT raids involve a search for drugs. That's 62%. So the majority of these raids are due to the war on drugs. At least 36% of all SWAT raids, no contraband of any kind is found by the police. So 36%, they don't find anything. Kind of like this one in Georgia that happened where the small child had a
flash grenade
thrown in its crib and was put into a medically induced coma because of the severe injuries that he sustained. So no contraband was found. They found drug residue, but they were looking for a suspect that didn't even live at the home, that was suspected of having drugs and guns, neither of which were found.
Brilliant. They almost killed a kid and didn't find anything.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And they probably got away with it, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nothing's going to happen to them. Well, we'll see if anything happens to him. If anything does happen, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But likely that nothing will happen, of course, which is in the bulk of these police misconduct cases you have, almost nothing happens to the officer. Most likely, or the worst thing that normally happens is that the officer is placed on paid leave for a couple weeks while the heat from the press and the communities dies down and people forget about it, and then they put the guy back on duty.
Yeah, that's a very strong punishment. You're going to pay the guy to sit at home.
Yeah, paid vacation. That's what we like to call it. So you got 36% of these SWAT raids. No contraband of any kind is found by the police. In cases where it is suspected that there is a weapon in the home, police only find a weapon 35% of the time. So 65% of the time, when they're going to look for weapons, they don't find any. More than 100 American families have their homes raided by SWAT teams every single day. So you have families of more than just one or two people. You have whole families that are getting their house SWAT raided every day, kind of like what happened to the family in Georgia. And here is the big kicker for me. When we're on the internet spreading information about the injustices of this military-style raids, these SWAT raids, the police sympathizers and the police law enforcement officers that are on Facebook or on social media will come out and say, well, it's because it's active shooter scenarios and people holding others hostage and dangerous, violent people that they're going to confront.
I know two cops who have argued with me on police brutality hundreds of times.
Yeah, only 7%, here's the kicker, only 7% of all SWAT deployments are for hostage, barricade, or active shooter scenarios.
And we win.
Yeah, 7%. So you're looking at most of it is because of the war on drugs.
Ending the war on drugs would save a lot of lives, earn a lot of money, in general.
And it would reduce the violence, because what does this underground market for drugs really create? It creates an atmosphere where gangs and cartels thrive and make lots of money.
People talk about the Mexican drug cartels and securing the borders. The first way you can really secure the border, you'd get a lot less people coming over if you legalize marijuana and stopped this war on drugs, because the cartels would stop coming.
Yeah.
Or the cartels would greatly decrease, because the most sold drug out there is marijuana.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And who do you think that these cartels are giving their money to? They're getting money up here to the States to combat the legalization. It's
they've become lobbyists.
Sure.
The only difference between them and a lobbyist is if you catch them lobbying, they'll shoot you.
Yeah, good point.
If you catch a regular lobbyist lobbying illegally, he'll throw you in jail.
Yeah, and what's strange about it as well, to also think about all the times the government has been caught with these cartels, allowing them, enabling them to bring these drugs over the border into the United States, and how these banks like HSBC and Wells Fargo have been caught laundering money for these gangs and cartels and terrorist organizations that have a monopoly, almost a monopoly, over the drug trade. And you can look up just this year in Business Insider, the DEA and other security agencies were involved with the largest Mexican drug cartel. They had a deal that ended up worth billions of dollars with this cartel in exchange for basically giving this cartel immunity. That cartel would give the federal government information and intel on the other cartels. So what they were basically doing was eliminating their competition.
Hmm. And what you would do if you legalized it, maybe you'd still have the cartels, but they would become stores. The cartels would not have to do their business in the night. They would not have to kill each other or kill others to do their business.
Well, sure, you have that possibility, but also people would grow it themselves, especially marijuana.
Hemp.
And also you talked about the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, they have their drug cartels, of their own. I mean, they have a monopoly over the heroin industry through OxyContin and other opiates that they distribute. But it's crazy. They're the biggest drug dealers, and in fact, legal drugs kill more people than all the illegal drugs combined. So you don't see these SWAT teams going to Pfizer or any of these other pharmaceutical companies to bust them.
They're the real cartels.
Yeah, yeah. You have them in the open market in front of our face, selling drugs, Adderall to children, which is an amphetamine, very similar to methamphetamine, pharmaceutical grade, probably not as potent as, say, the street drug methamphetamine, but it still has a lot of the long-term effects, and they're giving that to kids. So people that say, "Oh, I'm not for legalizing drugs," they really already are legalized. Marinol, marijuana, OxyContin, heroin, Adderall, meth, they're already legalized, but just not the way that a lot of people think. You eliminate this underground black market, you take the power away from the cartels, you take the violence out of our country from the cartels and the gangs, and then you cut down on the violence, so you make it safer for police, not just the communities around these gangs and everything, but the police are safer. Everybody's safer. It's not that hard a concept to think about when you look at it that way. Other countries have done this, and they've seen the drug use actually go down. They start treating their drug users, instead of treating them like criminals and throwing them in jail where you can get any type of drug, they start treating them as addicts, as patients.
In Colorado, which legalized it for recreational use, they saw a 50% drop in their crime rate. They gained millions of dollars in tax money.
Yeah, the Free Thought Project was one of the first sources online to report on that. Yeah, they came out with that a few months. I think it was a quarter-year study, and almost all of the crime statistics had gone down, and that's just in a quarter of a year. And time is going to tell even more. I hear people saying, "Well, just wait, just give it some time, and you'll see what's going to happen to Colorado." But
Let's see
you and
what
I
happens.
both know that nothing negative is likely to happen. It's actually going to be the opposite of that.
Shouldn't the police want this war on drugs to end? Because then they'll have an easier time. There will be less police death. There will be less police brutality. They'll be less scrutinized in the media. They'll be less scrutinized by people like us.
I think a lot of them do, Dylan. I talk to them all the time, and almost all of them are for some kind of reform in the war on drugs. But it it's too profitable. It allows the government to have an excuse to give grants to these police departments. They just give out tons of money, and the police eat it all up. They apply for every single grant that they can from the federal government, and the excuse is gang violence. The excuse is the potential for now. The excuse is that libertarians and conservatives and gun owners and all these other, you know, huge groups are a threat now, because
Cool.
that's what the federal government is beaten into everybody's head through the corporate controlled media. Uh, and so it's an excuse for them, for the police forces, to make money. So they're not going to fight it. They're getting all the cool toys. They're getting all the money. They're getting the training. They're getting all this stuff that makes them feel like big bad boys that you know, they're not going to fight it. A lot of them aren't going to fight it. So it's up to us to spread the information that the mainstream corporate controlled state run media won't put out there to everybody. So
The police.
that's why we have the freethoughtproject.com.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Can I go to another topic real quick?
Sure.
Kind of has to do with the police state, and it just fell out of my head. I had it, and it literally just fell out of my head.
That's okay. Did it have anything to do with the grants, the federal grants, or anything?
I don't think it did. It actually had to do with shoot.
It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I had it in my head a couple times, and then I lost it both times. Oh, I remember now. There were reports back in October, of foreign troops, on U.S. soil training with the military. Russian troops in Pennsylvania, which I did see them. I could see those. Chinese troops in Hawaii. Do you know anything about this?
You know, I heard about some of that. I think I heard something about in Florida as well.
I heard a little.
And I saw the reports. I think Mikhail Thalen of StoryLeak.com and Infowars.com, I believe that he did a report on that. I don't know a lot about this cross-training with the military. Obviously, Posse Comitatus is pretty much out the window. I don't know what purpose it serves and what they have planned, but it's obviously happening. We're seeing it being reported on. It's mainstream news in a lot of cases, but what the purpose of it is, I don't really know. Is it possible it could be something evil and, you know, all that? Sure. Is it possible it's just, you know, us placating other governments, saying, yeah, come in and do some training with us, and being friendly that way? It's possible. It's hard to say. But then again, I don't know a whole lot about it. That's one thing that I haven't really looked into that much. But yeah, it does raise some questions, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing that people don't look into this.
It is. I mean, people are so
Pacified.
they're so entrenched in the, just like I was. I mean, I've only been awake, politically awake, for a couple years. People are so entrenched in this this culture of celebrities and sports and just things that don't really matter. They end up believing that our existence, that our world is quite boring. And you and I both know that it couldn't be further from the truth. We live in a very interesting world, and
A very
in
scary and
very
dangerous world.
interesting times. And by interesting can mean scary as well.
Mm.
Uh, and the times that we are living on are definitely scary.
And we're living in critical times.
Very much so. But it's also, it's important to know that it doesn't take the majority of people to get things done, to have a, so to speak, revolution, whether it be peaceful or violent. It doesn't take the majority of people. I think the American Revolution was fought by 5%
It was
of the people,
the
right?
number is 3%.
3%.
Yeah, that's
So,
why the movement. There are movements called the 3%ers. But
exactly. But we got more than that now. I mean, most people out there believe in some kind of conspiracy theory, and all people really need to do is wake up to one of these symptoms, like the police state.
I woke up to. I didn't even wake up because of a conspiracy theory. I woke up because of the Edward Snowden leaks and the NSA.
Okay, so it's fresh for you too. Yeah, and there's been NSA whistleblowers talking about the stuff that Snowden talked about for almost a decade, if not longer than a decade. But Snowden just has all the documents to prove it.
Yeah, it's good that he has documents, though.
Yeah.
It helps. And he
And
got
I
it
think
out in the mainstream, so.
Sure, I think that he's woken up a lot of people too. But at the same time, you have people that dig into the information. In this information age, they're going and looking and researching and informing themselves. At the same time, you have these people that are just going further to the opposite end of the spectrum. They're becoming more dumb, more entrenched, like I said before, into this almost fake type culture of celebrities, sports, and bread and circus BS. So we're definitely the ones that
It's a mass
that
awakening.
are going to have to make things change.
It's a massive awakening.
And I look at it as we are. I don't know if you're familiar. Kind of a metaphor with the cells in a caterpillar. When the caterpillar, right before, when it's in its cocoon, before it turns into a butterfly, there are these cells in it that it actually almost dies, the caterpillar does, but there's these cells inside of the caterpillar that go around and literally wake up the other dying cells, and it ends up turning the caterpillar into a butterfly. And these cells that wake up the other cells are called imaginal cells. And we are the imaginal cells, waking up the other dying cells.
Yeah, people just. I think the one thing they'll never take away is the internet. Because if they take away the internet. I was making this joke a while ago off air. The moment they take the internet away, that is the moment 350 million people will go to the White House.
Well, it's not going to just happen like I was saying. It's not going to happen with the snap of a finger, really. I mean, I guess it could happen, but they're going to do it slowly with the ending net neutrality and things like that. But here's something to consider.
I've been fighting for net neutrality because it's flawed. It's the only thing holding back the corporation censorship.
But you're right. And here's one thing to consider, though. While this slowly happens, while they're slowly trying to destroy the internet, people are looking at ways around it to find in creating another internet, especially with the Snowden revelations. Other countries are making their own internets. So you can't regulate those, the ones that the government doesn't have control of. So people will find a way around it, kind of like what they're doing with the 3D printing of guns.
Yeah, I did a video for my school a while back at the beginning of the beginning of the school year on the 3D printers. It's amazing. The
It is.
technology is incredible.
It is amazing. I mean, I got to meet Adam Kokesh a few months ago, and then I got to meet him again just last month, and listen to him speak. And we talked about the end of the internet, and we talked about how technology is accelerating and 3D printers and all that. And he kind of I kind of adopted his point of view by saying, when they try to end the internet, people are going to make other internets. They're going to make other sources for communication.
Mm.
And also with the 3D printing, what happens when they make 3D printers that can make 3D printers? You can't regulate 3D printing then, or 3D printers.
Well, 3D printers can make 3D printers.
Sure.
The technology is already available.
Yeah, they can make organs. It's incredible what they can
China
do.
made organs. NASA's making rocket parts. There are a bunch of experiments going on. The University of Pennsylvania is experimenting with 3D printed food. Domino's and McDonald's are investing in the research.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
It's probably better than what they're giving us anyway.
I know. How can it get much worse, right? That's one thing that I do. Talking about food, is I'm a local organizer for the March Against Monsanto here in Oklahoma City. We just had our march not too long ago.
Yeah, and I'm fighting for the end of Monsanto.
Yeah. It's amazing how these corporations are supposed to be looked at as people according to the laws of our government, but yet how do you cage or incarcerate a corporation?
How do you tax?
How do you give a corporation the death penalty? I mean, BP should be gone. Monsanto should be gone.
Oh, they should have gotten the death penalty 5 times over.
Oh, Monsanto, yeah, they should have been gone after Agent Orange or PCBs. It's unbelievable.
And if they're people, why are they allowed to evade tax?
It's because they control the people that write the laws about taxes.
Oh, I know. I'm just... Yeah, it was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I got you. But as you can see, the police state and my actions with informing people with the police state, I do know that it's only a symptom of much larger problems. And I believe that problem is actually government itself. Like I stated before, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and I think that a lot of our problems, certainly not all of them, but a lot of our problems would go away. Maybe not instantaneously, but some of them most definitely instantaneously, if we would progress into a more of an anarcho-capitalist type of society.
And I agree wholeheartedly.
And
I think there needs to be a little bit of government.
Well, that can be argued as well.
I think
that's what our founders tried to do.
Well, you need to use it to regulate things like the corporation. You need it to...
Well, the corporation itself is a government-sponsored entity. I mean, the corporation itself, I mean, you take away that facade of a company, and then you take away a lot of other things, too.
I agree, but it needs to be there to regulate things like corporations. It needs to be there to combat other issues, too. Like, it needs to be there to prevent things like the Gulf spill. Going back to BP.
Well, I mean, those are arguments that you can make. And, you know, our founders, I don't think they had anything in mind about controlling and regulating corporations when they founded the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution was only meant to do the Constitution was not really meant to give the government that many powers. They've completely overstepped the powers that they were given with the Constitution.
And they also need to be...
I believe that a lot of the problems that we have now are actually from the government control and government regulation. But we don't need to get into all of that.
No, we can do that on another show.
But I will make the case that more of an anarchist approach to the police forces and security forces would be a positive. Then that's something that is a misconception about uh, Cop Block and the Free Thought Project, is that we don't want police. We don't like police and think that they shouldn't exist, and that's not it at all. We believe that well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I probably be pretty accurate by saying this on behalf of everyone. But they believe that security forces are, in fact, very valuable. I mean, people need to be protected, but if you take an approach of more of a private, and not saying private in the sense of a fascist type entity like Blackwater coming in to do your policing, but community police forces that are voluntarily accepted by the people in those communities, that aren't a monopoly. You could argue that the state has a monopoly over the police. When you all police forces and sheriff's departments, they answer to federal authority. When you are arrested, you're arrested by an actor of the state. When you go before a judge, the judge is an actor of the state. The prosecutor is an actor of the state. So you have this whole monopoly.
Can I make a point about the courts really fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
People have argued with me that police and courts should be allowed to do whatever they want when prosecuting a criminal. That's all well and good if you can trust them. At this point in time, they have not earned my trust.
Well, no, they've done a lot of things wrong. I mean, you look at the I wish I could remember the name. It's this little nonprofit that helps people get exonerated of crimes. People that are
the Innocence
falsely
Project.
imprisoned.
The Innocence Project
for life and things like that, and they get people exonerated. When these organizations with attorneys and stuff, they find evidence that should exonerate a prisoner, it takes years through the justice system, and sometimes doesn't even work, to get them exonerated and out of prison.
Well, the name of one of those is the Innocence Project.
Innocence Project. I think that's what I'm talking about. Exactly. So you're already on top of it.
Yeah, I've delved a lot into the police state and the justice system. It's the same argument you can make for the death penalty, that you can't we're going to trust these courts that do everything, that do all these things wrong with the power of life and death.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with it in theory, but not in practice.
Sure. Especially when we have such a flawed justice system, and a corrupt justice system, a fascist justice system. It really, I used to be, a guy killed someone, send him to death. I mean, it's funny that most conservatives are pro-life, but they're pro-death penalty. I think that stems from a moral standing that killing is wrong. But
I stand pro-life, anti-death penalty, so at least I'm morally aligned with myself.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm kind of the same way. I wouldn't say I'm. They try to shove everybody into two different categories. Either you're pro-life or you're
pro-choice.
Or pro-choice. So I'm pro-choice to the point where, if there's something medically wrong in the pregnancy, or if it was a case of rape or something like that, the woman should have her choice to do what she wants to do. But I'm against using abortion as a form of birth control.
There are plenty of other methods you can use.
Yeah, but then that's one of those things. I mean, where do you draw the line? It's one of those heated topics that
which
is used to divide us.
Yeah, I don't think it should even be an issue currently because we have much more important things to argue about and much more important things to worry about.
Sure. That's what the politicians and people in power do to divide us. Is they create these, or they use these hot button topics that really get people's emotions going. Because if the people are emotional, then they aren't thinking clearly. But just to go backpedal back to what I was talking about the police being possibly private security being an alternative. There is a video that I'll send to you that is from copblock.org. It's about one of these possible anarchist type businesses. It's called the Threat Management Center, ran by this officer Dale Brown in Detroit, and he formed this threat management center because people in Detroit were tired of being brutalized by the police and all kinds of other problems, and it's had a lot of success. Granted, it's only one example, and I'm sure there are other examples of things like this gone bad, but it gives the people an option to look at other than this monopoly on force that we've been discussing. So, like I was saying, it's the state and only the state that has control over the justice system.
Yeah, and the justice system needs to be corrected. Judges shouldn't be allowed to take bribes either.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on, from the judges to the sheriffs to the enforcers themselves. It's just a big problem, and like we were saying, it's just a symptom of a much larger problem.
Yeah, and we need to stop that problem, or it's all gonna go to hell in a handbasket.
Yep, it currently is right now. So.
Yeah, and I don't know when we're headed there, but I know we're nearly there.
We're on the downslope of tyranny for sure, and we see all the different indicators and all the different facets of government and even our personal lives. So the Federal Reserve to the police state to all kinds of other things. So then that's there's a lot of things that we could be doing other than fighting each other over pro-life, pro-choice, and other divisive topics.
Gay rights.
It's like the gay rights issue. I'm all for rights for homosexuals.
Of course.
Okay? But I'm for everyone's rights. I'm for rights of the individual. I don't think the government should be involved in marriage at all. And if people looked at it that way, then there wouldn't be this issue of gay marriage.
Yeah, abolish the institution altogether. Leave it up to the individual.
And that's the idea of anarchy. That's the idea of libertarianism, is the freedom is at the individual level, not of the freedom of the collective whole or the good of the collective whole, which we hear our politicians talk about, what we have to do for the good of the collective whole. The same things that come out of the mouth of Hillary Clinton and Obama are the same things that came out of the mouth of Mao Zedong and
Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler,
and all the other evil dictators of history.
Yeah, so, Idi Amin,
Adolf Hitler, all of them.
Hugo. I don't know much about Hugo Chavez, so I'll leave that alone.
Little Hugo, huh? Well,
Saddam.
The same thing that happened with the Chavez and the socialism down in Venezuela is the same thing that happens with every socialism little experiment throughout history.
Yeah, just look at Soviet.
You have a time where the people call for all these changes and money from the government, all that, and it's good for a little while. and then it all collapses. And we can see that in what's happened to Venezuela here lately.
There's a civil war going in Venezuela currently. Uprisings at the lakes of the Ukraine.
Yeah. And I mean, what's gone on in Latin America and everything down there, a lot of it has to do with our own governments meddling in their affairs and putting in regimes that aren't democracies. And
we see this trick all the time. The U.S. puts in their puppets to be the new dictator.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with dictatorships as long as it's our own.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as they say it's for freedom, they can coax us to go along with it.
Except we can be proud to say that didn't happen with Syria.
Yeah, and yeah, we haven't seen the end of Syria.
Oh, no.
But
I think we're seeing...
And that has to do with the internet. It has to do with things like this happening right here. You can't convince a bunch of soldiers to go overseas and kill people that they can communicate with on the internet. The government can demonize them all they want, but when you have the enforcers that can go on an open forum and talk to people over in this country that they're going to go and invade and get their take on it, they start to understand that, hey, you know, I'm not going to go and kill this enemy.
I think we're about to...
That's why they have to have these proxy wars now.
I think we're about to see it with this whole ISIS situation, because the rebels in Syria are ISIS. So I think we're about to see the beginning of something over there.
Time will tell. There's definitely some stuff going on. I hear they got boots on the ground over there already.
They do. 300.
They had them over there for a while, but they're just now telling us about it.
300 are over there currently.
That's what they say, and we know it's more than that. But
probably around 1,000.
But yeah, so a lot of stuff to research, a lot of stuff to stay up to date on. Which I will admit that since I've taken on this responsibility, the Free Thought Project, and this police state information, I've kind of fallen behind on the geopolitical stuff and the war stuff and all the other things, but I still try to stay as up to date as I can.
To all the listeners out there that are questioning what we're saying, everything we've just said in the show is verifiable. You can check on everything. I'll have links posted in the description to what I've been sent. And I will post everything I can find on these different topics.
Good. Well, I like what you're doing, Dylan. I look forward to interacting with you more via Skype and back on our chat. And I had a great time. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. This is The Truth Speaks. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'll be back on Wednesday with CIA whistleblower Jim Garrow.
Very cool.
We are signing out.